So 2021 is the year the world is supposed to get back on its feet. We've spent a lot of time pondering about, waiting for a bit of normality to return, as recently we've been very limited. And this same scenario has been sort of playing out in the gaming world too, because it's pretty obvious that we're going through a bit of a drought regarding multiplayer shooter games at the moment. There just simply hasn't been many new ones around for a while worth picking up. Call of Duty has been bossing it over the past year or two, with a constant stream of games, live service models and massive updates chewing up all of your hard drive space, and there's practically nothing else around to dethrone it, even though the latest game in the series, Black Ops Cold War, isn't exactly hitting all the right notes, with it having a bit of a mixed impression on the COD community. There's been a huge gap in the market recently regarding multiplayer FPS games, which has been pretty much dominated by COD. But with all that said, things might just be about to change. Now Battlefield is easily one of Call of Duty's biggest competitors, though it's sort of been put in a bit of a weird spot ever since Battlefield 5 came out, falling flat on its face, not really doing the franchise's image any favours. Since that game was released, a lot of Battlefield fans left it behind and quickly forgot about the series. And while the Battlefield community has been shrinking, Call of Duty has been growing, through the likes of Modern Warfare and Warzone, without having to worry about anything else to really threaten its position and knock it off its perch. So 2021 might just be the year the world is supposed to get back on its feet, but it's also the year that the Battlefield series is supposed to get back on its feet too, because there's a brand new game cooking in the oven that literally has to succeed and wipe away the negative reception that the last game's been creating for itself over the past couple of years. The Battlefield community is pretty much craving for a proper modern Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 styled military shooter to come along and take over the world once again, as it's something that can't quite be replicated by other games, no matter how hard they try. Modern Warfare tried to do this with its ground war mode, but ended up feeling like a watered down wannabe version of Battlefield, not even holding a candle to the game it's trying to copy. So you might be wondering what any of this has got to do with the video's title, and you might be wondering why the next Battlefield game could appeal to COD fans, perhaps persuading them to jump ship in 2021. Well, one of the big reasons, other than the fact that there's nothing really to compete with COD at the moment, is because there's a hell of a lot of people out there that are sick to death of a thing called skill-based matchmaking, which has been plaguing the Call of Duty games the past few years, basically sapping the fun right out of them. You probably already know what this is, because you've heard a lot of other people on YouTube blabbering on about it, but in layman's terms it's basically an algorithm that chooses who should play against who, depending on how they perform in the game. Lobbies are formed depending on skill, which might sound pretty fair, but considering good players aren't getting any extra benefit from playing against other good players, it really isn't very fair in the grand scheme of things. Why be punished just because you're a decent player, or because you've had a good match? Call of Duty games used to be about jumping into lobbies with a bunch of randoms, messing about with different loadouts, guns and equipment, completing challenges, unlocking camos, and generally having a bit of a laugh. Some matches were pretty tough, others were pretty easy, but most of them had a nice blend of skill sets all meeting together without any bias or barriers. The only people being penalised back then were the people that had shite internet connections, because matchmaking was mainly formed around signal strength and not much else. But nowadays, normal public servers have become transformed into stupidly competitive tournaments, where you're constantly being thrown into matches with people that are either as good as you, or better than you, forcing you to play like your life depends on it every time you hop into a friggin' match. Everybody's playing like there's 100 grand on the line, and you're practically forced to camp and sweat like a bastard if you want to do well. But of course, by doing well, you get thrown into even tougher matches, which is sorta counterproductive if you want to get back and have some fun. These days you can't crack open a few beers and just chill out with a few rounds of COD, because you're now constantly being punished by a bunch of G Fuel snorting twats with scuff controllers, zipping around like they're in the championship finals. Pretty much every bloody game. A bit of healthy competition is good from time to time, but when it's like that all the time, the fun dies out very quick. And after a few matches of yo-yoing between good players and God players, Call of Duty gets switched off and another game gets switched on instead. It becomes almost impossible to unlock the higher kill streaks unless you reverse boost, but you basically just try and play as bad as you can to be put up against worse players. And you can't just mess around in lobbies anymore and try out new loadout combos without getting constantly wrecked. Activision knows well and good that a lot of veteran COD fans don't like skill-based matchmaking, but they don't want to get rid of it, as they also know that it keeps the noobs active on the game for longer and potentially spend more money on microtransactions. Because believe it or not, there's more bad players out there than good players. So Activision wants to do as much as they can to hold their hands and make sure they don't do too badly, as at the end of the day, they're the majority. One sneaky change I've noticed in Black Ops Cold War, which I think is pretty hilarious, is that kills and assists have now been joined together, forming Overwatch-style eliminations. giving the illusion that players are performing better than they actually are. In a way, padding out people's KD ratios while trying to make the game's skill-based matchmaking seem like less of a problem, even though it is still there, cranked up to the bloody max. But anyway, going back over to Battlefield now, thankfully those games have never really featured any kind of cutthroat skill-based matchmaking system before. At least not like COD anyway, because in Battlefield you can pretty much just choose whichever lobby you want to join manually from the server browser. Not to mention the fact that Battlefield games generally have a much larger player count too, so it'd probably be quite tricky for skill-based matchmaking to be implemented into Battlefield, because it'd be a hell of a lot harder to find 64 players of the same skill set, and throw them all into matches at the same time over multiple platforms. For these reasons, I'm almost certain that it's not going to be in the next Battlefield game, and because a lot of COD fans just want to have a fun multiplayer shooter to play that doesn't penalise them for doing well, I could bet that providing Battlefield 6, or whatever it's going to be called, is marketed well and looks to be heading in the right direction, then a lot of those COD fans tired of skill-based matchmaking will probably be eager to give the new Battlefield game a go instead in 2021. There's no doubt that Activision will insist on keeping strong skill-based matchmaking in the series, like they have done for the past few years, so this is only going to divide the COD community even more over time. They've been getting away with it so easily because there's barely anywhere else for the fans to go at the moment. But if Battlefield was to come along and challenge Call of Duty, then they'd either have to make a rank mode separate to the public servers, like pretty much everyone in the COD community has been asking for God knows how long, or they're just going to have to get rid of skill-based matchmaking entirely, or tone it right the way down so that public lobbies are a lot more random, just like they used to be back in the good old days. Looking back into the past, Battlefield stole the limelight away from Call of Duty a few times, like when Battlefield 4 diverted a lot of attention away from COD Ghosts, and more recently when Battlefield 1 shat all over Infinite Warfare in 2016, stealing a pretty big portion of the Call of Duty fanbase that year. Despite Battlefield 1 winning the war in the media, Infinite Warfare still ended up getting more sales, because COD games always do. But it definitely impacted the series in a big way and forced Activision to wake up and actually listen to their community, with the next games to come out after going back to boots on the ground combat, following a more familiar, traditional format that everyone really wanted for the series. Is this all about to happen again in 2021, only this time because skill-based matchmaking's causing a big chunk of the COD fanbase to lose faith? Well, it's difficult to say. I guess that all rides on how good the next Battlefield game turns out to be in the end, and I guess it all depends on how Activision decide to handle skill-based matchmaking throughout the rest of Black Ops Cold War's life, and whether it comes back in the next title to dampen the fun in that game too, which I'm gonna guess it probably will. The proof's in the pudding that skill-based matchmaking is ruining people's experience with modern games, because even Fortnite had it at one point, and then the devs decided to take it away, because of the way it was impacting their fanbase and the game's overall reception. In reality, Activision don't really seem all that bothered that a lot of its long-time fans hate skill-based matchmaking with a passion, because they're still raking in the cash every year and encouraging millions of noobs to stick by their games and spend loads of money on microtransactions. Leaving skill-based matchmaking in still benefits them from a business standpoint, even though it's pissing off a lot of their die-hard fans. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens when another AAA FPS game, aka the next Battlefield game, finally comes along to challenge the next COD game, and possibly snatch up a good portion of its fanbase once again. Unless there's a ranked lobby system separate from public matches in the next Call of Duty game, I can honestly see a lot of people switching sides in 2021. Especially if the next Battlefield game turns out to be a really good one, completely free of skill-based matchmaking with its own server browser, like all of the other games in the past. So anyway, what do you think about all of this? Does skill-based matchmaking put you off playing Call of Duty? Do you think the next Battlefield game could catch the attention of a lot of COD fans sick of being thrown into sweaty lobbies? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions on this down below in the comments. But that's it for this little debate, thanks for watching. Subscribe and apply all notifications if you want to be the first to see new content on my channel, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.